I wake up feeling like this? How did I get to this point? And just so many different questions, so many different emotions and feelings just all tied up, just weighing on me, man. I just let it all out to God, pouring and screaming and crying. And I got out my car, I learned how to tie the rope, and I was gonna put it around my neck, and I put it around my neck, and I learned how to do everything. And I just broke down, man, and I just started screaming and hollering and crying to God, man, and I just had to go. What's up, y'all? Today I'm going to be sharing my testimony with you guys. My name is Jameer Hill. I just want to introduce myself first. I'm 20 years old. I'm starting my junior year of college. I play basketball at my school. I'm from Joliet, Illinois.
How you doing, Jameer? Can you describe how was your life before finding Christ?
My life before finding Christ, man. I didn't really grow up in a religious home. I was around family members that believed in God, that prayed to God, and that told me to pray and stuff growing up. But I never actually knew who God was, so I couldn't actually have a relationship with somebody that I don't know. Going into high school, going through life, going through struggles, and getting into my senior year, I found myself praying a lot more to God, the God that I made up in my head, my created image of God. I found myself praying to God a lot more. And during my senior year of high school, I found myself that I was like always nervous a lot. Even growing up as a kid, I was shy. But my senior year in high school, I found that it was a problem, and I was nervous, and I had this anxiety. Back then, when I was in the moment, I didn't think of it as anxiety. But now that I look back on it and everything, I realized it was an anxiety problem I had of always being nervous all of the time. Around that time my senior year, I started to look into self-growth books. I fell in love with self-help and self-growth books to just, to help my confidence and, my self-esteem, just my character traits, just me as a person. I wanted to build all of that up and just be the best person I possibly could outside of basketball. So I started reading self-growth books, and that led me into reading spirituality books, like the New Age practices with the different type of meditations and the chakras and the spiritual enlightenment and the crystals. I got led into reading books like that, and I started practicing things like that the summer of going into my freshman year of college. And going into my freshman year in college, I was in a relationship coming out of high school, which was a really toxic relationship. And going through college, it was long distance, and that caused a lot of stress on me just going through that. And also just the anxiety that I had going into college, it really gotten a lot worse. Being away from home, being around from people that I was used to being around my whole life, it wasn't the same anymore. And so being at school, I would wake up every single day with like this bug in my stomach. It drove me to be so nervous, like literally every day. I caught myself being anxious before literally every moment before going to class, practice, coach's house. I was just always nervous, and I always tried to hide it deep down inside. It was like the real version of me. I tried to hide it deep down inside and, keep it a secret that I really wasn't nervous. And so 10 games into my freshman year of college, I fractured a bone in my leg, my fibula, and this was the first major injury I ever had in basketball. I was really depressed. My anxiety had gotten a lot worse. I started isolating myself even more, and I was just really deep in my thoughts, overthinking all of the time, really anxious and having anxiety and just sad. And the relationship I had, it just seemed like it kept getting worse, and my life seemed to be going downhill. And so the injury I had that freshman year ended up lingering on, going like for some reason going on even longer. It took my leg to heal for so long. So me having to sit out of basketball that whole year really took a toll on me and my mental health. And during that year, I continued to do the New Age practices, the meditations, the spiritual alignment stuff, reading the self-growth books, and it was all self-seeking. None of it was me seeking God. It was just all me trying to benefit myself. And it was all prideful. I was living a life the devil wanted me to live. I was not aligned with the purpose of God. I was aligning myself with what I thought was right, which is not what the truth was of life.
When was the turning point when you gave your life to Christ and accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Going into my sophomore year, June, before school had started in August, I had met my teammate, a freshman, incoming freshman. He was a Christian. He believed in Jesus, strong in his faith, and he shared his faith with me. He shared the gospel of Jesus Christ with me. And, you know, when I heard it, it didn't amaze me or anything. I thought I already had life figured out. And when he shared it with me, I didn't deny it or anything. I didn't reject it. I just listened. I didn't think it was wrong. I didn't think it was right. I just said, oh. And as school started, as I got closer to this teammate that was a Christian, he started to share his faith a lot more with me. After practice, we would go into the cafeteria to get food, and almost like it felt like, thinking back on it, it felt like almost every day or every other day, he would talk about Jesus to me. Like, he would talk about God like he was just like this precious gift. Like, Jesus was just this precious gift, like the best gift ever. And you know, I would just listen to him. Sometimes I got tired of listening. You know, sometimes I wanted to listen, but I never like said, man, I don't want to talk. I just always let him speak to me. You know, going through that sophomore year, I was still in that toxic relationship I was speaking about. And it got like really, really bad. And it was really stressing me out. It was really, really messing with me, man, messing with my mind. And I still had that anxiety, and it got worse. I continued to read my books. I continued to seek life on my own. And it just felt like my life was going down a steep hill. Like I was just rolling down the hill. My emotions, my feelings, my mental health, my confidence, just like everything about me and myself and my life just wasn't so great. As the season started, I'm playing basketball and I wasn't enjoying it at all. So playing ball, it didn't bring me that much joy. Having a relationship that I had, it wasn't that nice. Me, myself as a person, I really didn't like myself, to be honest. I lived in fear of my life because I woke up with so much anxiety every day and I always kept it to myself. As the year went on, I ended up having to end the relationship I was in. And man, that was like, it crushed my heart so bad because it was like my best friend I had for 2 to 3 years and I couldn't speak to them anymore. A person that I spoke to every day for like 2 years, I couldn't talk to them anymore. So that was really difficult for me. And then I ended up fracturing my hand in basketball. So at this point in time, I'm really questioning my life. Like, it's like I had a life crisis. Like, what is my purpose in life? I loved basketball. I went to a Division I school to play ball, and it's just like, man, like, what do I do from here? Life is not going well for me. The thing that brought me joy in my life, a relationship and the sport of basketball, neither of them were there anymore. So I started to have really depressing thoughts. I started smoking. That led to me overthinking. I had gotten a therapist around that time, and my mental health was just really bad, man. And I just really had a lot of questions that I just didn't know the answers to. I would cry, I would pray out to God, and I got so sad to the point where it drove me to have suicidal thoughts. I started thinking of ways to harm myself without having anybody to really know. And you know, I went to Walmart and I bought a rope, and I went to my car, and man, I was in tears in the store, teary eyes, sniffling, about to go buy this rope, man. I get out the store, I get in my car, drive to this park I used to go to all of the time, man, and I'm just sitting in my car, punching my steering wheel, screaming, crying out to God at the top of my lungs, just asking, why is my life like this? Why do I wake up feeling like this? How did I get to this point? And you know, just so many different questions, so many different emotions and feelings just all tied up, just weighing on me, man. I just let it all out to God, pouring and screaming and crying. And I got out of my car, I learned how to tie the rope, and I was going to put it around my neck, and I put it around my neck, and I learned how to do everything. And I just broke down, man, and I just started screaming and hollering and crying to God, man. And I just had this moment where I just paused, and I was like, you know what? If I wake up tomorrow and I feel better, I'll take it day by day and then see how this goes. And you know, a couple of days go by, and I go to that park again. I go on a walk. This is daytime this time. I go to the park to go on a walk, and I'm walking, man. You know, I'm smoking, and I walk past this guy. He's not facing me. He's facing the water. And as I walk past him, I speak of that anxiety I had. I used to try to practice things to get me out of my comfort zone. So as I walked past the guy, I planned to say hey to him. You know, I said hey to him as we walked past, we spoke. And as I got past him, I had this thought in my mind, and now that I think back on it, it was literally God speaking to me. Like, it wasn't a voice, but the feeling in my body and the thought in my head was so strong that I just knew it was something else. And it's like I was wrestling with that thought as I kept walking. So the thought was for me to turn around and go up to that guy and tell him everything that was going on in my life. And it wouldn't even make any sense, because at that time I had a therapist that I was already telling everything to. So for me to go up to that guy was like, it didn't really make any sense. Like, what is he going to tell me that a therapist is not telling me? So I'm walking past this guy and I'm still wrestling in my head with these thoughts. And the thought was just so strong. The urge I had in my body to turn around was just so strong that I could not resist. So I just stopped and I turned around and I walked up to him. I'm like, hey man, I know I don't know you and I know you don't know me, but can I speak to you, man? And he's like, yeah, of course. He turns around and I just start letting everything out, man. Just pouring my life out to him, just everything I was going through at the time. And I told him everything. And the first thing he asked me was, did I believe in Jesus? And right there in that moment, I was so quick. I said yes. But as the conversation went on and on, I kind of got like stuck. I like kind of like dozed off as he was talking. I kind of like, zoned out. And I was just like, man, like the stuff he was saying was like almost everything my teammate was telling me that whole entire year about who God was and who Jesus was. So in that moment, I just was out of words. I didn't really know what to say. I just wanted to break down crying, but I held it in because I didn't really know the guy. He just goes on and on talking to me about Jesus, and in the moment, I just find so much joy, just a little bit of joy. I didn't have any joy around that time in the past. I don't know how long, but as soon as that man started talking to me about Jesus, days after I was going to harm myself, it just made me feel joyful in a way. And the guy, he invites me to his church, and I go to his church, and I bring my teammate with me that was witnessing Jesus to me all that year. And on the way to the church, man, my stomach was killing me. I speak of that anxiety I had, that nervousness I had, man, it was at 10 on the way to church, man. My stomach was killing me. It was cramping up so bad. I was overthinking so much. And when we got inside the church building, man, we get in there, and I realized I'm the only person of my color in the building. So it's like my anxiety rises on another level. I'm just overthinking. I'm like, oh man, I'm like, why am I here? But then I think back to the incident at the park. I'm like, this is God. Like, I'm okay. I just calm down. So my stomach was killing me the whole time, but I just tried to deal with it. And then finally, I seen a guy that I met at the park, and he introduces me to many different people, but then he introduces me to the assistant pastor of the church. And as I talk to the assistant pastor, he tells me a little bit about his life, basically his testimony in a short story. And as the guy is talking, it's like I had that strong urge and thought in my body again that I had at the park, the same feeling. So this time the thought was, you need to talk to this guy. Like, you want to get his number, you want to sit down, you want to talk to him. And I'm just thinking to myself, no, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way I'm about to talk to this guy. Like, I can't do it. Like, that's just not me. I'm a kid. He's a grown man. He's a man of God. Who am I? Like, just a couple of days ago, I was going to hurt myself. Like, why would he want to speak to me? So, I just left it alone. And the church service starts, and I see him on stage again. I'm like, oh, there he goes again. But then I think to myself, I don't even remember his name. There's no way I'm speaking to him. So I just leave it alone. And then church is over, right? So I see the guy, he's walking around. I'm looking from the corner of my eye. I see him walking up to me. And I'm like, oh man, he's about to come up to me. So he comes up to me and he says, Jameer, it would be nice one day for us to sit down and get coffee and just to have a talk. I was so excited inside because I'm like, what the heck? Because literally before church started, I wanted to talk to this guy. I had that urge in my body and that thought in my mind, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But then when church was over, he actually came up to me and spoke to me. 3 days later, I think it was on a Wednesday, right? We met at a Barnes & Noble and we sat down, and he had this packet and the packet was about who God is, the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I already had an idea of everything, but it didn't click in my mind. I didn't really know what it was. I had my teammate talking to me about it, and then I had the guy at the park that shared with me. So now I'm sitting down with this guy, and he's going to tell me about it face to face. So as we're going through the packet, everything is like kind of like revealing itself. Like it's like God is revealing Himself to me through everything that we're reading. We're reading scripture. He's showing me different things. But then we go over a verse in Romans. Excuse me if I'm wrong. I think it was Romans chapter 10, verse 9. If not, it was Romans chapter 9, verse 10, one or the other. But I remember reading the verse that said, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. And when we read over that verse, I remember like, yeah, I want to be saved. And then because everything clicked during that time, it was like, I don't have to do anything else. I just have to accept Christ as my Savior right there. And then right there, He opened up the prayer for me, and I prayed to God. And I just prayed to God, and I confessed that I was a sinner. I knew that I wasn't living right. I knew that I sinned in my life. I knew what sin was then. And I confessed that I was a sinner, and I asked for forgiveness. And I told God that I know that Christ died for my sins, my past sins, my present sins, and my future sins. And I accepted that grace in my heart. I told God I believe that Christ died for me, that He rose from the grave 3 days later so that I can be reborn and I can be saved. And I accepted that in my heart in there. And I prayed that to God. And there in that moment, I just feel something so powerful. It had to be something spiritual because I don't know what it was. It was just one of the best feelings ever in my life. So there in that moment, that joy that I spoke about, that I felt at the park, that when the guy was spoken to me about Jesus, that joy that I felt, it's like I felt that joy a little bit more. So then now I have this thought of mine, like, this is real. Like, Jesus has to be real. And that joy that I felt, I wanted to keep feeling it. So I continued to seek God after that.
What was going through your mind when actually, I got two questions for you. What was going through your mind when everything was happening? And what made you think and believe that it was God?
All right, so what was going through my mind when everything happened, man? The whole time I was thinking like, what is this? And I was also thinking like, this is God. So when I say, what is this? Meaning, I met this guy at the park and he's speaking about Jesus. So I'm thinking like, what is this? Like, is this really God right now? Like, I was just praying out to God the other day saying I wanted to, kill myself. Don't wake me up the next day. And then 3 days later, or 3 days later, a couple days later, whatever it was, I meet a guy. He's speaking to me about Jesus and God. And the questions or my story that I told him had nothing to do with God Himself. But he asked me about Jesus. So during that time, I was just thinking like, whatever this is, like, this is God, man. Like, and I want more of Him because He was bringing me joy in that time. And the reason why I feel like it was God, or not even feel, the reason I know it was God was because nothing in my life ever gave me that type of joy in the middle of my struggle. I never been to the point where I wanted to kill myself. But when I got to that point, nothing in my life brought me joy. The sport of basketball, a relationship, marijuana, like none of that stuff brought me joy. But the moment I turned to God, to prayer, to learning about Jesus, it brought me joy. It didn't matter about what I was going through. It didn't matter if I was facing a near death at that time. I still would have found joy because I met Christ and I accepted Him in my heart. And that's how I know in that moment that was God. And Jesus really did save me. And this is my testimony. I thank you guys for watching.